Welcome Richard, traditional owner and custodian, who works and lives on country, educating and sharing stories of the Gadubanud traditions. Thank you for talking to us. We are very interested to speak with you today and hear your stories of the Gadubanud.
Welcome. Ngātawa. Within the Otways, and just below the surface, both physically and socially today, silently lie traditional songlines, harmoniously dancing along rivers, around wetlands, in seemingly hidden valleys and caves. The cultural heritage evidence is so rich that it has been mentioned in past archaeological surveys that the coastal areas, particularly in the Otways, displays evidence of intense living landscapes, sustaining multiple clan groups, and even larger trade enterprise due to the bountiful food cycles and in such intense medicinal value. From the saltwater to the freshwater middens, semi-permanent structures, initiation sites, local trading and tool sites, they all sit within the walking routes, and the caves that have always been treated with reverence and adorned periodically with offerings and ceremony. Though one cannot see this, rest assured that Aboriginal culture is alive and caretaking is going on. The Otway ecology is born from the womb of Gondwana. The flora and fauna are the creation of her magic, and rising from ancient dinosaur times, these creatures still live on. So precious are these gems that in some cases they exist nowhere else in the world. Animal tracks, human tracks, train tracks, and roads. We are the descendants of the crow's line, and in the rainforest we would be. After 200 years of constant displacement from the mountains to the sea, now happy standing under the beech tree, together we can welcome thee. It is the ancient land calling us back. Our histories together now are free. From Colac sands and Murnong lands. In the early days, we struggled too. Illuminate, the name of one born on the gentle slopes in the setting sun. Every place has a name that gives new purpose and direction to run. For our people's story you can always see in naming place, in song. What may seem distant, forgotten or unknown in this forest is as real as the day your soul is born. Natama. Natama. I want to talk a little bit about the ancestors. I particularly want to talk about our great uncle Wilmot Koorroot. Koorroot was a guide in the Otways who took over the family role from his parents and his uncles, who were the first official people in the Otways to guide and be recorded as guiding several characters that we read about today in different renderings since this topic was talked about in the 70s. In fact, the topic I'm going to talk about never was spoken about prior to the 70s, and I think for a lot of families in Victoria and Australia that the holding pattern of these stories is really because we want to all be friends. We want the hurt to stop, and we also want people to stop feeling guilty. It's really important for people to know that our family continued living on. I'm very proud of Koorroot. He spoke Gadubanud. Kata is the law of Gadubanud Country. Won Talan Gadubanud. Talan Gadubanud. Speaking your tongue, gathering with people seasonally. It's not well known out there, but the earliest formative renderings, collections of language in the southwest came out of the Otways, came out of this tongue. And the tongue is precious, the tongue holds, the song holds the three parts, or the multiple parts of the connectivity for people into country from their ancestors through to today. Koorroot was magical because he blended from the old world to the new world, and he's a very good example of a character that people more or less couldn't see. And this is a fantastic thing to talk about and to probably share with you as I finish talking about this topic. But it was through kindness, through language, through association of people in the bush, and through good humour that Henry and Wilmot were able to evoke in their times walking with people and guiding people through the bush, and with the police, or with people that were perhaps a little bit more disparate to find some land holdings. But nonetheless, characters like Wilmot, Henry, Wallaby, Henry, Erskine, on and on, the list is huge of the characters that would pass through the big bush during the evening between the two main principal missions, the Turin mission and the Wesleyan Buntingdale mission at the time, that was holding people whilst the new world was created. But characters like Wilmot lived in between. He lived between the cracks of society. And we survive today through this understanding.
Richard continues to discuss the Otways, the songlines, Pirt Koorroot, Otway seasons and more.
The parallel between it all, which is interesting, and the Beachy Rail Trail pops up, is because a trail, an old ancient trail, a human walk path, that's why I put those words in there, is a songline. They are all inevitably songlines. Humans follow kangaroo paths, they all follow paths of energy lines, and there's different ways of explaining it, and there's actually science on it. We've actually can scientifically find 2 accurate magnetic lines through here. So it's a dance to join those 2 things, but you do it via the specifics of the fact that I know that this trail, and when generation after generation follow the same trail, they're following the song. The most important thing in the song for the Otways is that if you can see our spirit lady that protects the Otways, and she's around the whole ridge, Pirt Koorroot. Okay, so Victoria has some what are called nulla nulla nears. They're ancient spirit protectors or creators. The theme comes in a female form, and they are perceived generally as a negative, but they're both negative and positive. And it's the way, and so then the stories, the colloquial stories in history that are collected are then very individualistic about those nulla nulla nears attached to their landscapes. So our nulla nulla near here, Pirt Koorroot, she has a lot of work to do, and she appears right about now. And we're in that period. And so to explain her to the Western construct, it's best to do it in a season. So let's look at the seasons quickly of the Otways. And the instance came that I thought, I've got to tell the story of the 3 seasons, because it's in the 2nd season that this phenomenon happens, that Pirt Koorroot appears. So therefore, in the Otways recorded formatively in the earliest day, 3 specific seasons. Now we could break those seasons down in half again, because every season has a flip-flop. So again, like the rest of Australia, we could say some years we see a 6-season event. However, invariably we start with the 3. The 3 in the middle we've just passing now, Nandak, the middle wintry part. And that's all about ducks and getting down into the ground and getting yourself in and nurturing and gathering, setting your food. Nandak time, and the waters come after. And we fall into the spring phase. And the spring phase is where Pirt Koorroot stands at the door of the Otways protecting. She'll open it at the right time. And we've just experienced her like no tomorrow, right? Everyone's seen it. Everyone's seen it. So it's good to talk about the fact that when she was rendered in history, she was Mother Earth kicking back, kicking ass on us. And that's what we've just seen in the Otways. Everyone's talking about the fact that it's really quite interesting, because having studied science as well, I can shape the physics of wind corridors and escalating events like superimposition in high astronomical tides at the ocean. So the sea rise is causing incredible damage. The sea temperature rise is causing invariable wind variations, and it's happening all over the planet. And then if we've got pedal to the metal on industrialised farming methodology in the Otways, it's happening all over Australia. So we've got industrialised logging instead of the traditional logging families here, which was the birth of this town. I love that fact. And you guys know that now, because you can see out the window there's a train out there that I built. So Aboriginal guy saving Aboriginal history looks like he wants to get rid of everyone to the world. No, I want to bring everyone in. I want to enjoy those unique elements of humanity where men work together, they cut a tree down by hand, they made it into a house, they made it into a boat, they made it into a train. The wood coming out of the Otways ended up in houses in Melbourne via boats at the end of the train line. it was the new world, because just prior to that, all of us were feeling sad because this war which was going on in the world, from India down through to New Zealand, down through to Tasmania, that ended up here on the mainland. And effectively it's still going for Aboriginal people, but that war changed with this emancipation of the new society. Right? Now that's my issue, because it was in there that the society split. And the walk routes, the original walk routes of our family that become train lines that lead to that industry, in between are the specific guiding lines for the governors down to the coast, such that the lighthouses can be built. Now the building of the lighthouses, where our family was capitulate in, because the essence of it is too many people are dying. So imagine if you're down on the beach. So we've got a story about Sandy Allen, an ancestor, and he's seeing people get off boats, and he's seeing people walk to Port Fairy, and he's making fires for them out of shipwreck wood. There's a blackfellow on the beach, he's burning the mahogany ship. So we have a recording of that. We know that that's gone because at that period of history people were utilising that stuff on the beach. Why? Because of survival. Because if purely in your country, and take your home, you don't want someone walking in there and dying and walking away. Well, they don't walk away. Their spirits don't. So you don't want that. So all of the work that Gadubanud were doing in that declension, at that period of history, which has been written as, wild blacks, pirating, people stealing, making false fires at Moonlight Heads to steal things, what was wrong? It's wrong. And I'm here to say it's wrong, because our specific family were guiding. We tell the stories of watching the shipwrecks. We tell the stories of what happened at the Joanna for 6 weeks when the men were getting so drunk on the beach that they were going blind. We tell that story from the bush. Or the sadness that comes after the change, the new emancipation, is that the new people don't know the relationships. And so in instances of confrontation between men, if you don't know the relationships, there's not an equal rendering of retribution or anything from the past that might have happened. So anyway, this is just part, you can see where I can go with this, because I can speak to a lot of the massacres. It's a harsh word, but I can speak to them because I know the characters and of both sides. I've been reading this play, the psychological side of it, for a long time, because I think Victoria deserves it. Both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Victoria deserves the scrutiny, the forensic approach to this. It's very much missing in our history, because that's where all the truths are and the lies. Sadly, the most of the writings from the 70s on then become facsimiles. So the original title of the story movie that I was going to do here was going to be The 13th Story, was going to be, because I actually have found 13 stories. 13th is our final one, me talking now. So I found 12 virtually, well, not virtually, but they're all recorded in some way. So it's from the original instance down here at the end of this train line, this Air River thing. You've got the story that they were telling each other, that they were going, as they were walking back to Collopy, right? And the different people rendered those stories. Then it went to court. Then it was written up in the society paper. Then it was written about in a novel. Then in the 70s we've got ethnographers like Jan Critchard and stuff writing about them, because the papers just returned in the 70s. Now the papers were the letters to and from the Protectorate that actually held all of the stories from the frontier, from the colonialists and whoever, back to the Protectorate. of what was happening on the land. And you need those papers. They went hiding in for many years and didn't turn up until the 70s. So a lot of the stuff done on the censusing, the numbers of Aboriginal people, what happened has been written since the 70s. And it's quite often very radically different from what an Aboriginal family will tell. And it's very easy to misinterpret what the old people were saying in history because they spoke Koori English or Creole. Our people spoke Creole. So we've got the little boy who was on watching the shipwreck, Lapo, the French names, Creole, because of the interaction of the French and the Portuguese. And one anecdotal rendering of Pirt Koorroot said it pointed to women. It pointed to women not to stray because a woman came out of the Otways and regaled the story. Now that happened in post-colonial time. That's crazy, that story. To think that someone was so determinedly seeing her. Now the moral of the story is that the Otways floods at this time. But where does it flood? It floods all around the Otways. So it was always known in history that you should never enter. If you're going to go into the Otways and meet people and trade, you should never go in this time of the year. You should wait until after she comes. So it's late spring. And there's two springs. There's early and late spring, and she's the divider. But you know, those things can shift a little bit. And the third season, which I didn't say before, is the major, and it's seen as a male-y thing. So you've got this Pirt Koorroot, it's a father of heat. So it's associated, if you can imagine it as a feeling, you know, Mother Earth, and you've got this big hotness coming, and it's got this hot sun. And for a man, you know, like it's, you know, you want the girl to just sit down under the tree, relax. You got to get out there, you know, in the hot sun. You got to go fishing. You got to, and the same in winter, but that's if you live in the Otways. But once Pirt Koorroot blesses you and you enter, you're right for months. Okay, so you're prepared to be locked in, or you're walking through. And traditionally, then the man stuff takes over in that Pirt Koorroot. So, and that's the initiation stuff happens through that time, right through till March, and that finishes up basically up north, up around Collopy. And the reason I'm talking about that, and I'm not afraid to share that, is because it matches up with two very significant things which were recorded in history, which are these great meetings. And those great meetings, everyone went to. You can imagine the philosophy in Australia is that everyone's involved, you know. And if you have awkwardness with another group, well, you might not go to that meeting. And there was always two meetings in the southwest. There's always one at Mount Ararat, and there was always one at the Miraray Swamps further over west that takes into consideration the Chaperong, which are different. They're on that side, so, and on this side with the Jargadwurrung and the Goolagin, and so we have different meetings every year. Oh. So, but walking through the Otways and that big holistic family group. That's why I want to work with everyone, because it's like we must work as a big family group, and as we come out of and go into the spring, and we're making our food, we're looking at our garden, we're making sure our animals are right, and then we're going to enjoy it. We're going to enjoy it around, you know, February, March, April. Tell those stories back to our parents, go back home again. In Victoria, the Gunditjas down on the coast are all very similar. There's like a circle and a tail, right? Everyone has access to the coast. And so there must be particular law as you go through each country. There must be a rendering of law. There must be adherence to that law. And that also applies that you would be speaking that tongue as you go through. So you can't go into someone's house, you can't go into someone else's country and start changing the language or be perceived to be doing that. It's very scary. You know, when you're walking in the street and someone's speaking another language right in your face, you don't know what they're saying. It can be the rudest thing that you can do. So the order is there in the sociology rather than anything else. That's what people can't see. So the argument between sedentariness and nomadicness really is a very naive discussion, because all people on the planet, you think at the time that a society was trying to render a people nomadic, then that would therefore apply they were terra nullius country. Why didn't that get applied to the pirates on the boats, to the people taking over Australia? They were terra nullius.
We are very grateful to Richard for his time and for sharing his stories. Otway Districts Historical Society gratefully acknowledges the Local History Grants Program and Public Record Office, Victoria, supported by the Victorian Government through the Community Support Fund.